All right, recording now. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Engineering Major, Philosophy Minor. EMPM is the spot where you can get a working aerospace engineer, me, my opinions on topics pertaining to engineering, philosophy, politics, and various other social issues. In today's video, I am going to be reacting to a CNN clip from Barack Obama. And he is being interviewed by this person who you see on the screen right now. I'm not sure who this is. But the video is titled, "This is what 72 million votes for Trump says to me," according to Obama. Now, I started this clip and watched about 10 or 15 seconds and immediately had some pretty explosive and like visceral reactions. So in this video, I'm going to try and tone it down a little bit and just share what I think that my opinions are. And I think that in watching this, you guys are going to see some pretty stark contrasts between what a conservative Trump supporter like me believes versus kind of what the opinion is of the media and Democratic politicians and stuff of us. So let's go ahead and react to this again. I've only watched about 15 seconds of it. I actually don't know how long it is, so I might need to like cut the video off at some point in time, but let's go ahead and get started.
72 million people voted for Donald Trump. What does that say to you about the state of this country?
Well,
So I just want to point out at first, like the way that the interviewer asked the question. Now, this could just be a bias of my own that I'm reading into this a little bit too much, but she says 72 million people voted for Trump, you know. She's kind of saying it in a way to act like it's a negative thing that 72 million people engaged in the democratic process of voting. And by the way, on the flip side, I think Joe Biden is up to like maybe 75 million, I don't know, 75 million votes or whatever. And, you know, that's good too, right? I mean, that shows that people are getting really engaged in the political process, and voting is a very unique and important part of kind of Western civilized life. There are definitely countries around the world where you can't vote. There are other countries around the world where you can vote, but it is a very obviously swayed political system where there might be a dictator, some kind of authoritarianism going on. So I'm not really sure why the interviewer is like asking the question, kind of implying that it's a bad thing. But let's hear what Obama says.
what it says is that we are still deeply divided. The power of that alternative worldview that's presented in the media that those voters consume, it carries.
So this is where I had a pretty stark reaction in the fact that Obama is basically blaming, maybe blaming is not the right word. Obama is essentially saying that a vote for Trump, the 72 million votes for Trump, are basically an indication of the media that we consume and not having to do with any of our own individual ideas that we just happen to share with, 72 million other people, right? But I want to take a step back for a second and talk about what Obama first said. He said it shows that the country is he says something along the lines of the country is still very divided. Well, I think that if you were to ask kind of the average conservative leaning, Trump supporting American, and I can testify that I'm one of them, um, I don't know that we'd answer the question the same way. Like if the question was phrased, um, wow, 75 million people voted for Joe Biden, let me tell you what my response would be. And I think that I can maybe speak for a lot of conservatives out there who are watching this. Of course, if you disagree, leave a comment. But I think what I would say is, yeah, I mean, it shows that a lot of people are participating in the democratic system, which is a good thing. It shows that, there was a lot of worry about voter suppression, leading up to the election. Clearly, that wasn't the case. And I don't necessarily think it shows division. I actually think it shows unity that we all want to participate in the process. But if you were to ask me the question of whether or not it's a bad thing that somebody voted for Joe Biden, well, I mean, I believe in the American system of voting. I believe in freedom of speech. I believe that you should be allowed to hold the ideas that you hold and vote for the person that you want to vote for. If I lose, I lose. If I win, that's great. But this is how the system works. And I like the fact that we can live in a country where, we don't all necessarily have to agree on the same policies or vote for the same candidate. But I don't hold anything against anybody who voted for Joe Biden. Now, I want to share with you guys an interesting example of this situation playing out that happened to me recently. And this has to do with a date that I went on recently with a girl. It was a couple days before election. Now, before I get into this story, I just want to say if the girl who I went on a date with ever ends up watching this, I want her to know that I have no personal animus against her. This story is not to disparage her or to disparage women or to disparage people voting Democratic in any way at all. Based on what I just said in the video, obviously I fully support anyone's decision of who they want to vote for. Now, we can agree or not on whether or not that candidate is better than the other candidate. That's totally fine. But I harbor no ill will against this person. She's a really nice person. She's cool. I'm just sharing this with people for an example. So eventually, after we had gone on a nice hike and we had lunch, and we, checked out like a bookstore and stuff like that, just very, very like kind of vanilla date. It was good. On the drive back, we started talking about psychology, and she brought up the topic of narcissism. And of course, she used an example of certain types of narcissism as manifested in President Trump. I didn't immediately jump into the political question at all. I was just engaged with her in the conversation. I thought she was making some interesting points. I did mention that some of the things that she ascribes to Trump are a little bit debatable, but that's really all I said. And then she was going to go further, but then she said, "Well, I don't want to offend you if how you voted. So like we can like." And I was like, "Oh, you won't offend me. You can say disparaging things about Trump or about whoever I vote for. It's not a big deal. I don't take it personally." So then she says, "Well, who did you vote for?" And I kind of hesitated for a second because I knew that this is possibly going to be a topic of contention. But, being the person I am and believing the things that I believe and standing by my beliefs, I said, I voted Donald Trump. Her reaction then was kind of where I don't want to say things took a turn for the worse, because it wasn't like we got in a screaming match or anything like that. But I could tell that she was taken aback a little bit. And I kind of want to brainstorm a little bit as to why she was taken aback so much. And this might not be what her actual thoughts were, but if I kind of try and put myself in her position and in the context of all the animosity surrounding Donald Trump, I sort of suspect she was thinking something along the lines of, wow, I mean, we just had good conversation, a good date. He paid for the meal. He picked me up. There's all this good stuff that's going on. And I think that she was just very surprised that somebody could just generally have kind of good willing and good natured intentions, but also be a Trump supporter. And so, of course, she started asking me why. And I ended up explaining to her why. But I also said, I'm not one of those people who is going to go around telling, you or anyone else who you should vote for. Like, you can have your opinions and I can have mine and we don't have to agree, but that doesn't mean that we can't, have a good time with each other and have good, interesting conversation, etc. The reason why I brought this up is because you can see that there is this kind of, Obama's talking about there being this division. And I think that part of the reason why there is this odd division in between things is not necessarily because conservatives or Trump supporters don't want to get along with people. It's that there has been a ton of negative media attention and animosity directed towards Trump and directed towards Trump supporters, even though a lot of the reason why we support Trump is not because we think that he is, a mastermind of coming up with appropriate tweets, but it's because we align with a lot of the values that his administration has put forth in terms of their policy positions and actions. So that kind of brings me to the second point that Obama makes, where Obama says something to the effect that, the media that these Trump supporters are consuming is, part of a completely different worldview. And clearly, Obama is citing this in somewhat of a negative connotation. And this is where the reason why I like almost jumped out of my chair earlier is because this is where I would entirely disagree. First of all, you have basically all of the mainstream media and even Fox News at this point. They made a couple egregious mistakes over the past couple weeks. In Arizona, Trump supporters were gathered outside of the election office and they were shouting, Fox News sucks, right? So for Obama to kind of claim that it is because of media allegiances and media information, let's say, that is that is the justification for why 72 million people voted for Trump is just simply, I don't think, correct. Pretty much Trump supporters, if we want media that is relatively unbiased, we are relegated to YouTube essentially, and maybe some parts of Facebook. Although I'm not on Facebook, so I pretty much rely on guys on YouTube. And there's plenty of diverse conservative voices that I listen to on YouTube. And I also do a lot of my own research, cross-referencing mainstream media sources with other media sources, and also trying to look at actual data, actual scientific studies, things like that, because I just don't trust the mainstream media. And I don't think a lot of Trump, and I would say there's a very small percentage of Trump supporters that trust big media in general as well. So what Obama's saying is kind of inaccurate. Now, the other thing that Obama kind of lets the cat out of the bag on is that he clearly admits that the media can swing the minds of voters. If the media couldn't swing the minds of voters, then how could he possibly argue that 72 million people voted for Trump simply because of the media that they're consuming? Well, you could easily say, well, does that mean that 75 or 76 million Americans voted for Joe Biden because of the media that they're consuming? The other reason why this claim by Obama is inaccurate is because, no, we're not just voting for Trump because we were told by somebody on YouTube or somebody on Fox News to vote for Trump. We vote for Trump because we believe in certain values that don't align with what the Democrats and what progressives and what the mainstream media is trying to offer us right now as core values. We just don't agree with them. I mean, I don't need the media to tell me that I like my First Amendment. I don't like that conservatives are getting censored. For that matter, I don't like it if people on the left get censored, although you'd be hard pressed to find anyone on the left who really does get censored unless they're explicitly calling for violent crime, right? I like my Second Amendment. I don't like the fact that Joe Biden said that he was going to put Beto O'Rourke in charge of guns, and Beto O'Rourke is the guy who specifically said, we're coming for your AR-15s, we're coming for your guns, we're going to come take them. I am not somebody who believes that the police should be defunded just because there have been a small amount of bad things that happen in the police force. There's plenty of great things that happen in the police force. I'm not one who believes that America is systemically racist, that every single institution that we have built in America, every single business, is basically just a power struggle between different races, right? Like, I don't believe in that. I believe in hard work. I believe that you get what you earn, you reap what you sow. And I believe that people need to step up and take responsibility and control for their own lives. I personally don't believe that a large government, a large federal government being in charge of everything and basically, taxing everyone in order to finance plans that may not benefit everybody, I don't believe that that's better than the free market. I also believe that a lot of these giant progressive welfare policies and also kind of like equity policies have produced unintended consequences that do not justify their institution. For example, abortion is a great example. There are millions of babies that are aborted each year. Now, the percentage of those babies that are aborted due to high-risk pregnancy or violence against women, let's just say, is very, very small. And my pro-life position is almost a direct result of the core values that I hold of personal responsibility, hard work and controlling yourself and taking control of your own actions. As Trump supporters, we are not interested in the government deciding for us what risks we are allowed or not allowed to take when operating in the free market. We see a huge infringement on this by mostly democratic states suggesting lockdowns and excessive regulations on businesses and excessive personal regulation. We see Joe Biden calling for a national mask mandate when most businesses have been mandating masks almost the entire time, when certain states have mandated masks the entire time, and it hasn't necessarily stopped the spread, as is typically claimed. So again, I think that it's unfortunate that Barack Obama wants to assign to 72 million people basically that they're voting for Trump because they're just parroting something that they heard on the media. No, it's because we have core values and they simply do not align with the progressive vision promulgated by the Democrats and the radical left. All one need do in order to justify to themselves whether or not they're going to vote for Trump is think about what their core values are. And they'll see that the left at the moment and even the Democrats don't seem to have any core values, right? Their values shift and change depending on whatever is popular in the moment. And popularity is not a core value. Let's see what else Obama has to say.
Is a lot of weight.
Are you worried about that?
Yes, it's very hard for our democracy to function if we are operating on just completely different sets of facts.
So I would actually agree with that. It is hard for our democracy to function if we're operating on completely different sets of facts. But Obama, here's what I would ask to Obama. Well, then Obama, the onus needs to be on somebody to show which facts are actually true. Now, I have seen a lot of things from the mainstream media, not the media that I consume, from the mainstream media that are overtly false, right? We can talk about all the coverage saying that Trump refuses to denounce white supremacy. There are many, many clips of him denouncing white supremacy. We can talk about the mainstream media explicitly censoring conservative stories when they don't align with the media's narrative. We can even talk about the media censoring the CDC when the CDC's research doesn't align with the narrative. We can talk about the media publishing stories in defense of riots and looting, suggesting that there are actually white supremacists going around stoking violence in the city. Let's talk about Nick Sandmann and Kyle Rittenhouse. The media spent a very long time trying to smear them as white supremacists. Nick Sandmann actually won a lawsuit against CNN because of defamation. Let's go ahead and talk about Barack Obama's own words. At a funeral service earlier this year for a prominent Democrat, I unfortunately can't remember that person's name, so sorry about that. But Barack Obama compared the use of federal enforcement in order to defend buildings against riots and attacks from the outside as equivalent to white supremacists in the South at the time of Jim Crow and segregation and lynchings. Now, Obama says that he wants our democracy to function. Well, I think it's pretty hard for the democracy to function if you, Barack Obama, and the media keep calling the democracy itself white supremacist and fascist and proto-Hitlerian and racist and evil down to its root, down to its very founding, and yet you'll claim that you actually want the system to keep functioning. They're two positions that are intellectually inconsistent with one another. Either you hate the system and you want it torn down, or you like the system and you think that it's worth preserving, despite the fact that it might have outcomes that you don't like every once in a while.
And when I hear that, Sam Donaldson, I think it's an environment that, is so...
Oh, I guess that's actually the end of the clip. Thankfully for that, because I'm making this video to be very, very long. Again, let's just go ahead and drive the point home, guys. 72 million Americans voted for Donald Trump because either their core values and their policy positions align with what Trump talked about, or just innately their core values are completely different from what the Democrats and the radical left are proposing. We have 72 million people voting for Donald Trump because they don't like being lied to by the media. We have 72 million people voting for Donald Trump because Donald Trump made promises, and he kept them. We have 72 million people voting for Trump because they watched Joe Biden flip-flop on every single issue he possibly could and only settle on an issue when he thought it was politically convenient or politically expedient for him. We saw 72 million people vote for Trump not because we were simply told to by some figurehead we saw online, because we're free-thinking, independent, proud American citizens who love this country and simply don't believe the premise that the country which has provided all of us Trump supporters, a diverse set of Trump supporters, black Trump supporters, Latino Trump supporters, Asian Trump supporters, white Trump supporters, all of us believe in these same core values, and we believe that the system has worked to our benefit, even though it doesn't produce a perfect utopia that the progressives on the left and in the Democratic Party believe that it could produce if only they were in charge. So guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that a lot of you who voted for Trump agree with what I'm saying. And for those of you who did not vote for Trump and voted Biden and don't agree with what I'm saying, again, this is no hard feelings against you guys. It's just simply an intellectual disagreement. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And again, no hard feelings against Biden people, but it certainly seems like Barack Obama and the interviewer have some hard feelings against Trump voters. So thanks guys, later.